coming into our solar system. It's going to be causing very severe problems to bug out. And they're signing non-disclose agreements before they go into the briefings, before the briefings begin, agreeing to not disclose to anybody else what they're learning. But reality is, well, it is what it is. The issue is the Atlantic coast, Pacific coast, and Gulf coast will all be underwater, 50 miles inland, 75 miles inland, 100 miles, depending on where it is, wiping out the regions, the homes, the businesses, the schools, the hospitals, where about half this population in the United States live, work, and play, including Washington, D.C., New York, Baltimore, Miami. It's a long list of major cities. The briefings I'm getting from my confidential source have the ring of truth to them. They do. There is going to be a lot of things other than just the oceans coming out of their basins. There'll be 200-mile-an-hour winds. There'll be earthquakes. There'll be a lot of meteors hitting our dear old planet here. It will have more frequent, more bizarre, and more dangerous weather events. Extremes of drought, and extremes of too much rain. Extremes of high temperatures, extremes of low temperatures. Days where we have 200 and 300 tornadoes in one day. Who ever heard of such a thing? 200 and 300 tornadoes in one day. Earthquakes in places that have never had earthquakes. As you see these things increase, become daily events, you'll know, because I've told you so, you'll know that we're getting closer to the end. The end being when Nibiru, the 10th planet, the destroyer, impacts us to the point where we have a tilt of the Earth's axis, and these oceans come out of their basins. That's what's going to cause the worldwide flooding.
The tensions have been escalating between the United States and Iran. There have been attacks taking place, all centered around the Israel and Hamas war. But what is very, very bold about this statement is, take a look. It actually took place at the UN in the United States. The foreign minister for Iran stood before all of the UN on American soil and told the United States, you will not be spared if this war continues. Take a look at the video footage so you can see it for yourself.
I say frankly to the American statesmen who are now managing the genocide in Palestine that we do not welcome to expansion of the war in the region. But I warn, if the genocide in Gaza continues, they will not be spared from this fire.
Breaking news coming out in the last hour. Prepare for war is the warning that it is the only way for peace. Now, as I mentioned, this just coming out in the past hour. I'm going to give you all the details of this breaking news that is coming out across the headlines. Now, here is the information coming out. Headlines starting to roll out across the news media outlets in just the past couple hours, as it says that France's Macron says that Europe, they must be ready for war if it wants peace. They're saying that this is essentially going to be the only way, according to French President Macron, saying that Europe will ready itself for war. And it says Francis Macron says that Europe must be ready if Russia escalates the tensions. This article coming out from Reuters just 36 minutes ago, and it is linked in the description below. Now, this is some pretty incredible major news. This would essentially pull everyone into war. If France and Europe go to war, NATO goes to war, Russia goes to war, we would see a dominoes effect of countries entering into war. So this is essentially a World War III warning that could be starting here, that is sparked as France is saying that this is the only way. And again, that would also pull in the United States and several other of the allies of Europe, as they're saying that this is the way, as tensions are increasing as well. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that they are ready for nuclear war, that they have their missiles, their devices ready. They stay combat ready.
10 terrifying realities you must prepare for. Number 1 is sewage will back up. The first truth about long-term blackouts is something that most people don't think about. Sewage. When the water stops running, not only will you be unable to access water from your sinks and bathtubs, but you won't be able to flush the toilets. You basically only have 2 options for dealing with sewage in a long-term blackout: burning it or burying it. Regardless of which option you choose, you need to make sure you dispose of the waste at a minimum of 250 feet away from your home and any water source. Number 2 is trash will be everywhere. The next major reality of a long-term blackout you will need to contend with is the fact that trash will be everywhere. Number 3 is no more online banking. Your credit cards and debit cards are going to be useless during a long-term blackout. Therefore, you are going to be reduced to using cash, which is why it would be wise to have an emergency fund of cash at your home. At least $1,000. Consider building up a stash of barter items. You may be able to trade them for food or supplies in the long run. Number 4 is no more gasoline. A lack of gasoline is going to be a major hindrance during a long-term blackout because the gas pumps simply aren't going to work. That's exactly why you need to stockpile plenty of gas and make it last as long as possible. Number 5 is gun confiscation could be a possibility. Law enforcement did confiscate firearms in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. Now, depending on the circumstances of the long-term blackout that you find yourself in, this could be a reality that you face as well. Solution here will be able to find alternative weapons which you can defend yourself against an attack. Bows, arrows, crossbows, spears, and knives at the end of poles if you have to. But your best option is to hide your firearms. Number 6 is no internet or cell service. You will only be able to run your phones, tablets, and laptops for as long as the batteries last, and as long as your generator lasts, for that matter. That's also not to mention that Wi-Fi and cell service will be gone for as long as there's a blackout. Simply put, you're going to need to get used to a world without internet, emailing, text, social media, and so on. Instead, you're going to find yourself needing to rely on alternative communication sources to stay in touch with others and the outside world, such as CB radios and ham radios. Now, number 7's a given, but we're going to go over it anyway. No more electricity. Have you ever wondered what life would be like if there was literally no electricity? A lack of electricity also means a lack of light indoors, a lack of power outlets, a lack of heat. It basically means that in many ways, life would literally return to the way it was in the early 1800s. Number 8 is no more food. This one should be obvious already, but it bears repeating. The only food and water that you're going to have access to are what you already have stored and what you have the ability to barter for. If you live in an urbanized area, then hunting and foraging probably aren't going to be an option for you. Once the water quits running and the grocery stores are all emptied out, and remember, there aren't going to be any more supply trucks coming in, then you will be wishing you had stockpiled all the food you possibly could have while you could have. Number 9 is no more water. The lack of running water is going to be a significant issue, and perhaps even worse than the lack of food. Scavenging water isn't all too difficult even in urbanized areas, as you can find it in public parks, fountains, and lakes, and so on. But the main problem will be finding clear water that is safe to drink. You're going to need to simply stock up on as much water as you possibly can. Number 10 is that the vast majority of people are going to go crazy. People are simply going to go off the deep end during a long-term blackout. The simple fact of the matter is that the vast majority of people are not prepared for such a scenario. And that's why they're going to turn into savages willing to for food, water, medicine, and any other essential items that they need to make it to the next day. You can trust no one. Do not inform anyone in your daily life that you're a prepper, and keep your stockpiles a secret.